welcome to our panel today. This panel is on physical and mental sustainability in comics creation. So today's discussion will center the experience of comic creators navigating mental and physical realities of working in comics. Just a heads up that topics about mental and physical health will be brought up, and just to take care when listening or watching. We also have some resources here physically, and will also be in the video description for crisis lines and other resources. And they are physically in this room on the table. Highly recommend picking those up. First introducing myself, my name is Jay. Here today, I work in community mental health, and I have a background in art education. And I'll just introduce invite our panelists today to introduce themselves. So if you can share your name and pronoun and a bit of what you're creative.
Yes. So I'm Stephan Black of Black Sideshow. He, him, they, them. And professionally, I guess I'm an artist, and then also, like many artists, I have a day job working in food services is mine. So, yeah. We gotta balance the two out. We gotta work, life, additional work balance.
And I am Jamie Isfeld. Like you, I also have a day job. I'm a web developer at the University of Manitoba, but on the side I make artwork, I make comics, and I also work for Narrative Declaration, a TTRPG live stream show. So, yeah.
Thank you both for being on the panel today. So my first question I wanted to ask was maybe what brings you to speak on this panel particularly today? What drew you to make that choice?
Mostly because it is important, and also I want to be able to tell people the stuff I've learned when I'm trying to fix my own life would be the thing, yeah. So it's like, well, I'm told one way, the best way to learn something is to teach it, but also I just want to share the knowledge that I have learned from other professionals. I'm not a professional in that. I'm a professional in the arts, but not a professional in the medical field. And just be like, okay, this is some stuff I've learned. Maybe it'll help you, or maybe it'll be like a good launching point to, okay, I can adapt this to the issues I'm facing, or how I can even if you're not facing any problems, you can just make your life easier, both physically and mentally, yeah. Why are you here?
I'm here because I have a debilitating chronic illness. I am currently dealing with a few issues with immunocompromisation, as well as just chronic fatigue, and quite honestly, I'll just come out and say it, I have long COVID. I have completely had to change my life because of it, but I still want to make comics, and I want to be here to help out anybody who wants to keep making comics regardless of whatever their current physical or mental state may be, and help them just be able to do it by sharing whatever things I've learned. So yeah, that's sharing it. We're here to share. Yeah!
Thank you both. It really sounds like you both have faced things in your careers as artists that have brought you to decide, like, I really want to share, I really want people to know what this is like, I want to be honest about that. So maybe we could go there and kind of, I'll ask, what are some of the barriers to sustainably making comics that you have faced that you'd like
Money.
Yeah.
Yeah, money. I'm like, what problems couldn't that solve? And it's like a lot of them. There's one thing that's called shit life syndrome. No, it's not in the DSM. But I should say I have a hoarse voice due to a mix of allergies and horrible heartburn. So, and additional stress before the convention. We've had overtime at work. My cat got sick, unrelated to mine, has just made my whole body go, I hate you. And a combination of my non-chronic illnesses just came and fought each other and fought that. So that's what's up with that. I'll try to project it loudly. So there's this thing that's called shit life syndrome. It's not a real BDSM thing. DSM thing. Where it is, you'll find somebody has been repeatedly going when they go to the doctors, they'll be like, okay, you've got diagnosed with depression, you've been diagnosed with this thing, this thing, this thing. And statistically, it's not likely that you would have 10 things. You could have 3 or 5, but a lot of them come to how much of this could be addressed or mitigated if you just had more money. Like maybe you wouldn't have chronic stress at that level if you weren't working 3 jobs that take all of your time up and you're still not making ends meet. Maybe you would have your depression, it could be that you have a chemical imbalance, but it could just be that your life is depressing. It could be that you have the chemical imbalance, but it's being exacerbated by the fact that if you seek help, you're not going to be able to afford it, and then you'll be further in debt, and then you'll need to work more, but you can't, and then so some of it is just shit, your life is shitty. And because of social barriers and stuff like that, is that the society we live in is not only is it just like, okay, this isn't how we originally were as hunter-gatherers, but the society we live in is also our own invention. Not necessarily that I invented society, but like we collectively as humans decided that this is the way it's going to be. It doesn't mean that it's the way it has to be. We don't have to work 40 to 80 hours to get minimum wage. We don't have to, but that's how it's structured. And like certain additional resources that cost money kind of make some things way more complicated. So it could be that like you could have issue A or issue B, but you could also have A, but it could be solved better if you had extra resources.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of like my my allergies and my heartburn. You know, they're separate things, but together they can mitigate them. And one of them is just, you know, because I had to dust my house cleaned, and it's like I haven't cleaned as often as I should. It got too dusty. I tried to fix it all together at once, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
So then it kind of kicked me down.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate the way that you brought in like the systemic lens, right?
Yeah.
When we think about having resources.
Yeah, it's systemic. That's it.
And even like I think about navigating resources, right? Like we've got holistic brought in there, but it's like where can I find help? Like where do I go? Where do I
That
start?
takes time.
Yeah, it does.
And you know, to get diagnosed with ADD, you need to fill out paperwork and forms and follow up appointments. And it's like, wow,
I went through
the
that.
symptoms of the thing I have.
Yeah, it took 3 years, and it was so hard to do because half of it is just making sure that you stick to a schedule.
Ah!
Yep.
The irony and the cruelty of
The
that.
system is
Yeah,
not
that is
built
very
to solve
messed
the
up.
problem that the system is built around. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And Jen, do you want to speak on some of this barriers conversation?
For sure.
Your experience.
For sure. I am a type A person. I am a very driven person. But as of March 2020, all of a sudden my entire life changed when my immunocompromisation combined with getting COVID at the very early stages to result in constant fatigue, to result in complete brain fog, to result in everything that made it hard to do all of the things that I love. So as much as I had spent my entire youth building myself good strategies, even my strategies started to fail because I couldn't keep up with them anymore. So even though I had systems in place to try and work through them, I didn't even have that. So when I'm thinking of what people are facing in terms of comics, there's definitely the financial side of things, but there's also just there are only so many hours in a day. There are only so many productive hours that we can take from our bodies. And when you're limited in how many hours you can put into it, you really have to start budgeting and planning and doing everything as carefully and as smartly as you can. So that's usually my strategy is we have to plan, we have to constantly be on the ball about things, which when you have ADHD can also be really tough.
Absolutely. And I appreciate both of you kind of identifying like these are the real things that we're facing as creators. And I know that you're both here. You're both
We made it.
Yeah, you're both showing your stuff. You're at Prairie Comics, and I wonder if you can take us to that. Like, what kinds of things have you adapted? You know, or brought in that have made it possible with all the barriers that you face?
Can I go first?
Yeah, you can go.
Yay, excellent. So, this was a very interesting year for me. Over the past year, I did Prairie Comics Festival last year, and I tried out a new table layout. And I realized this year that I had lost enough strength that I can no longer actually set up my table the way that I had in every year prior. I used to have muscle mass that has basically completely evaporated over the last year. So I had to shift how I was setting up my table. I wanted to have a brand new book out for this event, but unfortunately I did not have the physical capability to finish it. And that acceptance of, I tried my best, I know I put it in, and it just wasn't enough, but that's okay because we're still in this amazing welcoming environment. I still have my old stuff that I can put on the table and be happy about. I have some fun little stickers if you want to check those out. I have a few new prints, but it's not what I wanted, but it's the acceptance of okay, I have to be okay with what I can do because I know I tried my best. I know I did everything that I could, and that's reassuring myself, good job, you did it, you're at the show. That's the success, that's the victory. And also carrying stuff. Make sure that you figure out a good suitcase situation and make sure that everything is viewable because otherwise you're not going to make it.
And I wonder too, with this piece about like setting up your table, is it part of like community, like being able to be like, hey, can you help me with this?
Yes. Unfortunately, I had my partner who was going to assist me this morning. He is currently trying to fight a kidney stone, but that's neither here nor there. He's actually watching my table, so he's still here, which is wonderful of him.
Hydrate people.
Yes, hydrate. Yes.
There's a genetic component to that, but
yeah.
Hydrate anyway.
Yes, exactly. But he was able to help me do my preliminary pack up to take care of packing up some of my prints and just making sure that I had a good support network went a long way because it meant that those things that I am no longer capable of doing, I could still do.
And I wonder about you, adapting, adjusting, figuring it out.
There's even a few things I can talk about your experience. You say like you have like the support network. We say that, oh, we need the support network, and there's a circle to it, you know, the person in the immediate family and then the larger community. But it's weird how we kind of like individualize it. It's your support network. But we as a society are each other's support network. Like we stand on the shoulders of giants. If I went back in time, I know how to, you know, draw on a tablet, but I could never create a tablet. I couldn't even create a pencil. It takes so many labor and skill and division between groups of people to even just create paper. Even just solve that. And there's another concept called the minimum viable product,
Yes.
which is the minimum amount that it just needs to exist. And you falling back on your old stock and not worrying about the new, a new comic is the minimum viable product is that you're here.
Exactly.
That's the minimum. Even if you weren't here, the art still exists. I'm sure you have like an online presence and that.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
people could find you. They can still find the work even if you were not able to miss this one, or even if your partner wasn't able to help you, you can still literally turn to the neighbor next to you and go, can you help me lift this up? Could you? And usually they'll say yes. Yeah. So I guess I could talk about like my own stuff. Is that, yeah, me too. I also wanted, I've been working on a few new comics projects, and even just like decision paralysis and analysis paralysis, trying to figure out which one I should focus on more when I have like, 4 or 5 different things. Even when I picked one and go, okay, we'll focus all in on this one, it's not done. And I don't think it even would meet the minimum viable product level to exist as a comic. So I was just reprinting older ones from previous years. I say older ones like as if they somehow depreciated in value just because I drew them a while ago. They're brand new to other people. They like them just as much. Like we're reading novels and comics and stuff from authors and artists who are long dead, and it's new to us. It's still just as good. So I do find I have to always think like, okay, not just like new to me, because what we say, we live in our own lives, but other people see the highlights of our lives. The same is true for the art. I see my art all the time from start to finish, and everything that I see wrong with it, but for someone at, coming up to my table for the first time, it's brand new to them. They don't know when I drew it. They don't see the flaws that aren't even necessarily really flaws or mistakes that I made in that. It's good for them, it's new for them, it's just as good as it was, when I finished it a year or 2 years or 5 years ago. It's still good to them. And I have to focus on that. Okay, I don't need a brand new any art, but I definitely don't need a brand new comic every year when your whole comic is like, 30, 40, 50, that's a lot of work every year.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's going to take someone like, maybe half hour, an hour or something to read, and it's going to take you an entire year, 2 years.
Comics are
It's not sustainable.
Yeah, it is totally.
It's not sustainable to think, okay, I need a new thing every time. Yeah.
This like minimally viable
Minimal
product.
viable product, yeah.
It seemed to really resonate. You were like, yes.
Yes.
And I think about that word acceptance as well. It's not easy to get there to accept.
Yeah.
And to say, this is enough.
I say I'm accepting it, I'm going to keep saying that.
Well, yeah, how
And
do
maybe
you, how
it'll
do
be
you,
true
how do you
someday.
get there? So saying it, like, basically make it kind of plan. Anything else? Like, what gets you to that point? What makes that possible?
I find that actually holding the book in my hands at the end of it is a big boost for me because I see this is what I was capable of doing. I'm also a planner. I plan things meticulously. I schedule things around, again, what I can and can't do. So sometimes from the very beginning stages, I have to say, I can't manage making a full color comic. I'm going to make something that is black and white instead. I can't manage to make something that is gigantic, so I'm going to just make something small. I'm going to do a short story instead. Just having that final product and having that, I did this. I succeeded in making a thing happen that didn't exist in the world before. That's how I get through to the next one.
made this.
I made this,
Yes.
exactly.
I left a mark on the world.
It's-
I existed.
Exactly, and my big warm and fuzzies is that I also do comics for kids, so whenever I see a kid who looks at my book and then reads through it and they're excited and they eagerly just consume every page, I don't care that you just read my entire comic in a minute.
Yeah.
That is what I made that book for. That is the thing that
That's
I
you, you're looking into your own past.
Exactly. I made this comic and that kid who reminds me so much of me eagerly consumed it, and that is the boost, that is the drive that says, yes, this is worth doing, this is worth all of the pain, all of the suffering, all of the sleeplessness, all of that.
Yeah. I think it's pretty powerful to think of the idea of harnessing that energy. Like our brains typically have a way of kind of focusing on the negative, right? It's a protective thing.
Yeah.
It's what survival, right? You talk about hunting together, right? But to be able to go, okay, what brings me to like what matters?
Yeah.
Holding my book, being like, I did this, like having those moments. Is that something that you would impart to other people who are maybe struggling to feel like creators, feel like they can call themselves artists, like
Yeah, like some people, they say, oh, I'm not an artist yet, I draw, or they say, oh, I'm not a writer, do you write? Then you're a writer.
Yes.
Do you play an instrument, do you draw? You're an artist. You don't have to finish the picture, make it into a polished print. You don't even have to do it professionally, full-time or part-time. It's important to just create something yourself, and it doesn't have to be visual art. Some people, the way they create is they repair furniture, or they decorate their house, or they cook. Humans are designed to make things. We're designed to be creative. We're designed to be curious. That's how this whole building exists. Not just because it's a library, but also because we create things and we work together to create even more things and shape the world around us. Like the very first art, that was just us literally tracing our own hand on a cave wall. I mean, probably outside of a cave on a rock, and then that is what got washed away through time. But what remained was on the wall, and that was literally just us going, I'm here. Because the first piece of art was probably just us putting our hand in the ground and making an imprint, not because we were walking, but because we could, and go, me, that's my hand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not only that, we don't know, maybe the person who did that hand was disabled. Maybe that person who did that, we don't know anything about who they were, but their work remains. The fact that it is that the thing that they cared about, that they chose to create, that's what we see now. And it's important that as much as you're facing the same struggles that everybody else is, we're all in the same pool of talent, where all of us are trying to make comics together and everything, but sometimes you can't necessarily see those struggles that you're going through, so you can't see a chronic illness, you can't see a poor budget, you can't see all those things, but you still
At
are
the
putting
time
it out
frame, they
there.
probably almost certainly were disabled in some fashion. You
Probably.
just didn't have healthcare.
Yeah.
Like the first
Yeah.
step of a civilization was the first healed femur bone in like just cavemen, just a healed femur bone, because that could only exist because someone else cared for them.
Exactly.
They would have survived, but there's no way it would have been set right. They would have been a little slower after. So very few lucky people are in perfect health. And especially the further you go back, just because of healthcare at all. Yeah, so not to say that, they might have been disabled. They almost certainly were disabled, differently abled, or otherwise injured in some way. It's almost 100% certain, and like some of our history and novels and stuff kind of overrides that fact.
And it's
Yeah.
important to remember, you're not your illness, you are not
Yeah.
your limitations. Your work is not your limitations. The things that you produce exist outside of you. You're taking this thing from you and you're putting it outside of you. And some people might not like it, but hey.
You
did it.
Regardless.
Yes.
Yeah, I think of what it sounds like you're both sort of touching on is this social model of disability, right?
Yeah.
I think of being able to create sustainably and how, that's sort of why I chose the term barrier, right? Because it really is this idea of, is the world built for everybody? And when we look at other points of history, we can see how fluid that is and how oppressive a lot of things are. I wonder on that sort of the idea of the day-to-day, sustainability, anything that you want to touch on that you've learned through, whether it's structuring your day, whether it's tools, what helps you create your stuff in a sustainable way?
I need a timer because I'm pretty much time blind and find that sometimes it's better to use a break at work to get something creative done, but sometimes it's better to just adjust my notes, and sometimes it's better to just relax in those small 15 minutes. I find one of the things to more easily get stuff done is to set stuff out in advance where you're going to use it, or would it be the point I was going to say point of purchase, but the point of use. So if I'm going to use scissors at both my desk and my office desk, which is the dining room, 2 pairs of scissors there. One over here, one over here. Now I don't have to go over there. I can have 2 pairs of scissors. Stuff like that. Just lower the barriers in your own life to make things as easy as possible. And yeah, sometimes it means okay, this might cost a little more money to do this. Today I took a cab into here instead of just taking the bus like I normally do because my bag would have been heavy. And I'm like, no, that's going to make me more tired. It would be, okay, this is, I can afford this. I literally have the money, so I can do it, even if late I might be it's not as, it's more expensive, I bought the bus pass, but I'm like, no, this is going to make my life easier. Yeah.
It's okay to not.
It was worth that cost.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I appreciate that. The piece like the cab example, I think of bringing in the mind-body connection. Right? This is going to be better for my mental health today when I'm doing this incredibly taxing prairie comics day that can be pretty overwhelming.
Here's another thing, the division of labor, I basically just paid someone else to drive me directly instead of indirectly via the bus. I didn't walk. Oh God, no. I'm way too far. I live 10 minutes away, but that's too far to walk.
That big, yeah. Yeah.
In the medieval town, I would never even go to this library. It's too far.
Like I had mentioned earlier, and that you can probably go back if you look at my Prairie Comics panel last year, I am a planner and I love spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are one of my biggest tools for getting things done. So I will have things planned out where I have a sense of what I need to accomplish before I even sit down to work for the day. And I also give myself a little bit of leeway. If I can't physically do one thing, then I can go and I can try and do another one instead. But my big thing is that,
project.
well, yes. Now, planning your project is just as much work as doing the project, but it is worth every second of it, because then the other half, the actual doing part, becomes just so much more fluid and easy. And sometimes it's that mental block. It's that I have no idea what I need to do next. I don't even know where to start with this. No, I'll set up a spreadsheet that has, say, mine has 11 columns of all of the different stages for each different page of a comic that I have to complete, and then every time I fill it out, I get to fill in the square all nice and black, and it looks beautiful and organized, and I get a little score at the end that says, I did
A
good.
visual representation of the progress you've made.
Exactly. So I have a reinforcement there mentally of I am making progress, I am doing this well, and I also have something where I can look at it and I can immediately identify what needs to be done. I don't have to sift through work and try and figure it out and figure out where I need to go next and what's the next stage for it. It gets a little bit frustrating at the very end because you know all those ones that you haven't done yet are all the things you really don't want to do. But at least then you've got that direct flow, and then you snowball it. You do a little bit more each time until eventually you've almost got the project done, and then you just get it done. And the other thing is that because I have to be very careful about my energy use, my physical condition, I make sure that I take the time to prepare myself physically. So I just wanted to demonstrate this because I have learned this from an actual physiotherapist. And I also wanted to demonstrate something first. So this right here, this lovely little fellow right here that I'm about to strap on, these are wrist braces for tendonitis.
Oh yeah, I'm supposed to sleep with those.
Yes, I had to sleep
It doesn't
with these.
happen as often as it should.
No, and see, this is the thing, is that you gotta wear these things, because I had to wear these things for my entire early half of my 20s, because I worked myself too hard, I didn't plan enough to give my body breaks, and guess what tendonitis is? It means that your muscles are inflamed and they never stop being inflamed. I could not button up a shirt, I could not do very basic tasks because I had worn out my hands to the point where I literally could barely do the basic necessities of life. So when I had to wear these things to sleep every night and generally to work and generally whenever I had to do something, it was a constant reminder of this is what happens when you don't take care of your body, when you don't take care of yourself. So now, one of the most important things that I can demonstrate here today, and see I've just unstrapped those because they were keeping my wrist straight. Put your wrist up like this, push like that, and then slowly push back, and you'll feel a little bit of tension through everything. That's a good stretch to loosen up all of the muscles in your arm here, which are going to continue to tighten and tighten until you can barely move your arm anymore. You also want to do full finger stretches out like this, and you also want to make sure that you're moving your shoulders smoothly. Some people can't do this, just do this as high as you can, and down. Full range of motion, sorry if I bumped you up. And just doing that and opening up all the muscles in your arms and just making sure that you warmed them up before you start to work will go so far in terms of your long-term health and your ability to work. And I just have to mention, I just ran into one of my friends who works in comics who said that he's 50, he's in his 50s now, and he can almost not work in comics anymore because if he raised his shoulder like this just to demonstrate one of the motions, he couldn't bear the pain. It was so painful because he had pushed himself so hard that his career is over at 50. He can't make comics anymore because his arms hurt that much because he pushed himself so hard. So I cannot stress enough the importance of physical health and physical care when you're doing this. You can't push yourself too hard because you will lose the ability to do this. And that's why we're doing this, so that we can make comics. Not so that we can make the money. We certainly aren't in comics that we can make the money. Yeah. So that you can make these stories and things that you love.
Yeah, I appreciate the tie-in to meaning. Like you're talking earlier about making the book and like what that means. And okay, so how do we get there? Taking care in the early stages and not pushing your body. I wonder, I know Sue, you brought a couple examples of
Yes.
talking about strategies. And maybe this
So
would be a good time. Yeah.
I got these from the bookstore, but And this one, The War of Art, not The Art of War, The War of Art, this one is actually available from the library. They do have copies of this one. And he's written other books too. And the good thing about this one is it's a break through the blocks and when you are in creative battles, and it's about overcoming resistance. So it's mostly about, you know the concept of the muse, right? So this is about overcoming resistance, which is the opposite of the muse. It's the thing that tells you, do it later. Or never, go have a nap, it's fine. Not a restful nap because you need it, but because, work hard. And the good thing is they're all short little, like this is only a page and a little bit. So just little short things, and there's enough big space here. You can write in your own notes, but also it's not intimidating. You can just open the page and go, oh, read that, 2 minutes, and get like a little boost. And this is Stephan Pressfield, The War of Art. And this one, I don't know if the library has it, but I haven't checked yet, which would have been smart. Draw Stronger, Self-Care for Cartoonists and Visual Artists by Creota Wilberg from Uncivilized Books. And this one is, oh good news, it's a comic, pretty much. All full of illustrations about all the stretches like we just did.
Good.
And here's one like proper lifting, carrying your wheeled suitcase. And weird thing about wheeled suitcases, it took a very long time to invent them because there was the idea of masculinity. The man would carry the luggage though, and we had to like break down this idea that, men had to be like, cisgender, white, straight male had to carry the suitcase. And then we finally got ones with wheels, and very recently, the spinner wheels. Those are from this century.
Yes.
How did we take that long? The technology existed, it just didn't happen yet. And yet, oh, they're fantastic. And spinner wheels are the best. I'm never going back. And just like proper, like, so some of the stuff, yeah, just like in diagrams of the body, is just to be like, yeah, sometimes there'll be social pressure, or what you say, well, what is tradition, is peer pressure from your dead ancestors, is something, you can just ignore that. You don't have to lift the suitcase, you can just get wheels.
Yes.
You can get backpacks with wheels. Wheels are fantastic. Stop carrying the groceries. They're heavy, and especially when you hold them over our wrists. That caused me so much extra pain that went away as soon as I just carried a little less, put it this way, and just was like, okay, I'll just pay $10 extra. I'll just have to get a little less food, which kind of sucks because it's so expensive. We need it. But now Instacart will do it. They'll carry it in a car and I don't have to do it on the bus and just kill my body. So that would hopefully give me many, many more years
That's actually,
of drawing.
yeah.
It's just the division of labor.
That's a
Paying
really
someone
good
else to do
point.
it.
Exactly. That's a really good point. It's okay to take shortcuts. It is
It's
okay.
not a shortcut. Well,
It's not a
okay,
shortcut.
it is a shortcut. It's just not the bad term of a shortcut.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it is okay to get help. It is okay to take shortcuts. It is okay to
Call them
not do
goat
it
paths.
perfectly. Yes.
They're the natural path. They're
Yes.
where people
Where people
walk
actually
through the
get-
grass instead
Exactly.
of the actual paved path.
Yes.
That's the natural path.
Yes, but say you want to have a comic and you want it to be full color, you probably, if you're at this event, you have met somebody who is a full-time coloring person who will color your book for you. If you don't have the time to put it all in yourself, collaborate, work with other people. If you don't
That's
have,
how the Marvel ones are published every month.
Exactly.
One penciler, one
Yeah.
inker, one colorer, one writer, just a massive division of labor.
exactly, yeah. So share the labor, and that way you can at least have that beautiful product at the end that makes you keep going.
What I'm thinking about would be shortcuts or go path, depending on your preference, is this idea of taking off shame. There's a lot of shame that gets into like, we have to create comics like this, we have to make this much, we have to set the bar here. Yeah.
Absolutely. And comics are not competitive. You might think that they're competitive, they're not. Nobody out there is saying, oh, I have to be better than everybody else here. No, they all just want to share the work that they've done. And it's really important to remember that, yes, your collaborators, your friends might be getting a few more successes, but that is also okay because you're still trying. And so long as you are still trying to make comics, then you have not failed at making comics. You might not have quite the level of success that you thought that you would, but you have never failed so long as you are continuing to work on it, continuing to try.
Yeah, there's a great author, Renee Brown, who talks a lot about shame and overcoming shame. And one of her quotes she used, and I forget the person that had the quote, I think Mark Twain or something, Thomas Jefferson, I don't know. But it was about the gladiator in the arena is the one who's trying. So it doesn't matter if he fails, he's the one that's trying. And so that was important. If you look up Renee Brown, it'll come up. So, yeah, shame is ridiculous. A lot of it is self-imposed, some of it's self-imposed by others. But as a concept, it's pretty useless. Like, we're shaming ourselves into not doing our own work, into not being our own most authentic selves. And like, imagine like your favorite artist, your favorite writer, your favorite television show. Imagine what the stuff that shaped you and made you feel seen. What would have happened if the person making it was succumbed to the shame to not make it? Because I guarantee, if they're a writer or an artist, they had family members that were like, "Art, what the hell? Don't do that."
Yeah, never listen to them.
Yeah.
So if what we read inspired us, then we shouldn't be listening to any imagined shame or real shame from our families, our friends, or society not to do something, because the work we're going to do is going to inspire others. There's this one, 1,000 True Fans, which is like, okay, so $20,000 is not a lot of money, and I know because that's probably exactly what I make. Like, it's below living wage, but it's high enough. But if you had 1,000 true fans, it doesn't mean other people aren't your fans, but 1,000 people who spend $20 is $20,000. So if you got $20 from 1,000 people, and there's 8 billion people in the world, that's $20,000.
And
You only need a very small amount of people who are willing to be like, "I like your work, I'll support you, here's some money," in order to be like a pretty low baseline. So you don't need like 1 million people to like your book. You don't need 1,000 or 10,000 people to enjoy the type of artwork. You just need to narrow down the exact specific people that like your work, including like your tattoo. I saw that tattoo artist at the Winnipeg Tattoo Convention, and their work is so different from every other tattoo person there. But I love their work. And so, in order to be sustainable, they only need to find 1,000 people with $20.
And yeah, on that subject, the finding 1,000 people who love your work, it's a silly thing, but I growing up rurally, I definitely came into it of, it's not charity. They are giving you money for your work because they like the work that you're doing. You are not just taking their money from them, you are giving them something that means a lot to them. On the TTRPG show I work for, we have a lot of people who have said to us, "You were there for me at a really, really hard time. I was able to listen to your shows, I was able to show up live, and I felt so hopeless, but you guys gave me something to look forward to." And no matter what you're making, you might be that person for somebody else. So never feel like, "Oh, I can't charge the money for my work. Oh, I feel bad that I have to charge more than 25 cents above cost for this product."
Like, it cost me $5 to make, therefore it should cost $5. No.
No, you are
Your
giving
time and
something.
labor has cost, and that includes not just that it took you an hour to make it, or for a print, not a comic, but there's one where we're making art, we're not making a commodity. The commodity is like a loaf of bread. Go figure, I work in the bread factory. But so like the no-name bread, like, like the Walmart brand or the Sobeys brand or whatever, that bread is competing against like a brand name, Wonder Bread or whatever, but it's a commodity. You can get bread, it's basically the same everywhere. But you would pay extra and more to go get some artisan bread from your neighborhood local bakery that's doing special stuff with it. But when we're making art, the only place to get the art I make is me. It's not a commodity. I don't have to compete against the other person, even if they're drawing the same subject matter, like they're also drawing a cat or they're also making a comic, even if it's the same general theme. We're not in competition with each other in the sense that we're a commodity. It would be we'd want to implement as value pricing. Our pricing is not based on how much it costs us to make it. We're pricing it based off of the value it's giving our audience that's buying it.
Exactly.
And if they don't value it, if they're like, oh, I wouldn't pay for this, oh, $10, even something super cheap, $1, that's too expensive, but they're not our audience.
They were never going to
Our
buy it
audience
anyway.
will pay the money if they can afford it, obviously.
Exactly.
But yeah, they're the people who won't pay what our art is worth are not our audience. They're not those 10,000 people. Sorry, the 1,000 people.
Yeah.
It's 10,000 hours to
Yes.
become good.
Yeah.
Which is not actually 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
That was dramatically overestimated. That is a very, very, very high number. If you've ever actually sat down and figured out all of the hours that you put into something, very few people actually reach that number. And
Yeah, that's a lot of years.
kudos to them for making it there. I think there's only a handful of things that I could say that I've actually reached that point. The point is to get to the point where you've got something to show for it. It's not put in 10,000 hours, it's you have a book at the end and being satisfied with that, because don't push yourself to the point where you need to wear these stupid things. Don't push yourself to the point where you're hurting yourself just to make it happen. Just be okay with this. Here's the thing. It's good. It's done. Yay.
And you both were talking about the idea of like making something that it'll matter to someone. It's like bringing in, I think about, physical, mental health. I think about people living with disabilities and the idea of creators making work that reflect the people who are reading the work, who they see themselves. I think of Prairie Comics, to toot our horn, to be one of these places where people can actually see themselves reflected.
Yeah.
And I wonder, is there anything, like, any creators or any books that you've really seen yourself in that you want to share about? The idea of, like, whether it's on physical or mental health or other ones that you go, that, I saw myself in that and that person's life.
Actually, one of our guests this year, M. Carroll, who I started reading their book under a different name of theirs, and I really loved the short story collection. I think it spoke to me in a way that I'm like, I feel like this person's a little bit like me, and then it turns out no, they were pretty much a lot like me, and now they've I'm not going to speak to their story. You can go upstairs talk to them. Is that it's like they were a lot like me, So that would be one person right off the top of my head. E.M. Carroll. Coral. Carroll. E.M. Carroll. Thank you.
You got it?
The problem with reading is you never know how to pronounce it.
Exactly. I don't have any specific authors that I can cite, but because I've been dealing with long COVID and dealing with something that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge exists, quite honestly, unfortunately.
Well, if they acknowledge exists, then we'll have to deal with it.
So exactly. We might have to do something like mask in public places, heavens. So one of the things that I found solidarity in is just looking into the number of people who are in similar situations to me. I've seen stories about people who used to run yoga studios or gyms and now can barely leave their bed. And I've seen stories about people who used to be avid participants in their community who are now near recluses just because they physically can't anymore. And just seeing the number of people who have also been affected by the same thing that's been affecting me, it's nice to just have that little bit of solidarity. And one of my projects that I will someday finish is just talking about this and making sure that there are people who can see these struggles are real, these struggles are true, and it's not a bad thing for you to have experienced them. You didn't do anything wrong, you just drew a bad hand, and it's okay. And so long as you don't give up, so long as you keep trying, that's all you can do. That's the best thing that you can do is just keep on pushing through.
Well, that's the amazing thing about how the concept of narrative is, because I think of being online and seeing stories in whatever format, I think of like a series of posts, the way they can tell a story. And maybe something like comics convention, out the window, everything's a comic, but like truly, like you can.
How great is the internet for lowering barriers?
Right?
Now everyone gets a voice.
Yeah, like, and so you can actually
Sucking
see,
mainstream media.
yeah, and people can put out what they need to their voice in a way that they can at the time, which for a lot of marginalized folks with disability, like that can be a huge barrier to actually get your voice heard. So I appreciate you bringing that forward. Like, this is what it meant to me to see these stories, and it inspired my work as well.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you both. I wonder if you have any closing thoughts. I think we want to do maybe some questions. I don't know. I should have checked. But any closing thoughts on the topic of just mental and physical sustainability in comics creation?
Advancing technology is making things super fantastic. Sometimes I think, well, I'm getting old, and I'm like, wow, I feel behind and stuff. But then I think, like, what technologies existed when I was young, I was probably working at the limit of what the technology could do. I'm like, oh, why haven't I done further stuff online when, the internet pretty much barely existed? And trying to upload comics to the internet, I feel like loading like one line at a time. But we're at the limits, whereas we can only do what we can with the resources that we have. And to not think, oh, like, what if and what if that. Like, I'm so grateful now just how many how many comics exist now. You go to the bookstore, there's graphic novel sections, a children's section, young adult section, adult section. When I was a teenager, there was one section, it was the comic section, and it had comic strips, and it had Red Hub, and I think maybe it had one Tintin or something. And that was your shelf. And now it's exploded. It's more accessible to everyone than ever, both to be able to read it and create it, and the amount of, like, specifically me as a queer person, the amount of queer comics that exist. Before it was like, I've read every queer comic that existed, that I could find, all 10 of them. And it's like, now I'll never finish it. It could be my entire task to create more of them and read them, and it will never end, and it's fantastic.
And as for me, never underestimate the number of resources that are available to you. And there are resources for genuinely everything that you can imagine. There are resources like events like these where you can meet, you can network, you can talk to other people, you can find out what they know, which
hasn't even existed for a decade.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
really new.
It's still really new, but fortunately there's amazing, and it's a wonderfully collaborative environment in that people want to talk about making this stuff. They're really excited about that. You've got resources like this library that we're in right now, where they have the idea mill, where you can have all sorts of additional resources available to you for making additional stuff that you want to make. We've got
which is also only a few years old.
Again, yes,
we can
exactly.
make buttons now.
Yes.
That before you would have to buy a freaking
a
button
press for it. A button press costs like
Now
what?
we can, like,
$150, $200, and
a
now
super cheap one that's gonna break.
Yeah,
for like $500.
exactly. But now there's one at the library. You can just go and use their button
Yeah.
press, and it's amazing. There's resources like government grants for book writing and book publishing, so solving that money problem of, I don't have enough money to make the story. One of the artists that I've collaborated with on a book in the past, he just got a writing grant for making a new book. So now he's actually going to get money from the government to tell a story that he wants to tell. And oh my gosh, I cannot stress how much Canadian grants are so much better than almost everywhere else in the world. Please investigate in them if you're ever finding yourself struggling with needing money. There are panels that Prairie Comics puts on throughout the year that talks about things like grant writing. There's locations like Art City, which I'm across from their
They're
table.
upstairs too.
There's Creative Manitoba, which has panels on how to be a creative creator. There's so many things that are available to people if you just go out and find them. And please take advantage of them. Please spread the word about them, because if they don't get the support that they need, then they won't exist anymore. And we want them to exist so badly because they're there to help. And nobody is here because they want to push everybody else down. They're all here because they want to help lift each other up and help just make these things happen.
Yeah, it's not going to be Prairie Comics Festival, a table with one artist.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff from like the resources is sometimes I always find, I didn't know that existed. How long has that been around? And it's like either brand new or it's been around for 30 years.
Yeah.
You just didn't know about it.
Exactly.
So sometimes just the right place, the right time, the right question to the right person. So if someone says something even tangentially related, be like, hey, do you know about, oh, you're an independent comic artist. Have you heard about, Prairie Comics Festival? And sometimes they have, sometimes they haven't, and then you get to tell them about it.
Yes.
Or even just, if you don't know where to look for an answer, you can just pick a starting place and ask them the question, and they might be able to spread it further along.
Exactly.
Oh, I don't know, but could you try here? And sometimes, if you keep going down the line enough, you can find resources, programs, grants that you didn't even know existed. And even the first person didn't know existed, but they sent you down the line and you were able to find the person that did have this thing.
Exactly.
Society.
Yay. We live
No
in a society
gatekeeping.
that we can make work.
Yes, thank you both for that, and I'll add to the resources piece, like we do have some printouts of different resources, especially around mental health, crisis resources, as well as just other resources. I think about one people don't always know about is Manitoba 211, which is where you can have a directory of like a lot of resources that exist. Also listed in the video description on YouTube is the Manitoba Accessibility Arts Network, I'm probably getting that name wrong, and Art Beat Studio, which is a supportive place for folks around mental health. And so, yes, those resources exist, they'll be in the video description on the table as well, and using those to help keep making stuff so people can be seen and can tell their stories. So thank you both so much for this. Are there any questions or comments?
One
Yes.
additional resource
Yeah.
thing. The Winnipeg Public Library, you can get physical books, you can get ebooks through Libby, but they also have a program called the Interlibrary Loan, where you can, you can also request that they purchase a book, but you can also request that they search every library in Canada, including university libraries, for a book, and they will bring you a book. Like I got a book from like the York University Library. I couldn't have been able to purchase it, that was like a barrier for me, but the library was able to bring it to me from another library. Interlibrary Loan, it's a little known program, but it's fantastic.
Thank you for promoting, one of the printouts is library, but also I am to say there is also community connections downstairs in the Millennium Library for people who can actually help you navigate resources. They're open today, Saturday. They're not open on Sundays, but they are open throughout the week. So community connections.
Is there also a social worker on the third floor?
Yep, absolutely. So there are
Artists and residents too.
Yes.
Yeah. So many resources.
Artists and
Library.
writer in residence too, artists in
Yes.
residence and writer in residence.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So any questions or comments from folks in the room?
Thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Thank you, yeah.
Thank you.